It was a swelteringly unbearable Saturday afternoon, May 17th, 2025, in Pineview Estates, when my backyard oasis turned into a battleground of petty revenge. I'd poured my heart into my new home, a charming bungalow just outside the HOA's iron grip, complete with a sparkling pool I'd built myself, a sanctuary after years of saving as a single mum. But as I lounged with a lemonade, I caught a glimpse of Karen, the HOA president, sneaking through my gate, her flip-flops slapping against my deck as she dove into my pool like it was her personal resort. Have you ever had a neighbor treat your property like their playground? Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from, because this story of how I turned her trespassing into a slippery blue nightmare will show what happens when a Karen picks the wrong pool to crash. I'm Sarah Mitchell, a 39-year-old nurse with a knack for DIY projects, and after losing my husband to cancer, this home was my fresh start, until Karen decided to make it her splash zone. Pineview Estates was a quaint suburban neighborhood, all pastel houses and trimmed hedges, but the HOA ruled with a velvet glove. My property sat just beyond their boundary, accessible via an easement through their land, a legal detail I'd triple-checked with my late husband's friend, a real estate attorney who'd warned me, HOAs will push every limit, Sarah, guard your rights. That advice was about to become my shield. The pool, a 20-foot oasis with a mosaic tile bottom, was my pride, a place where my 10-year-old son Ethan and I could make memories. But Karen had other plans. Karen was the epitome of entitlement, a petite woman in her early 50s with short, grey hair swept into a severe bob, always dressed in floral sundresses that screamed, "I'm in charge." I'd met her at a block party, where she'd sniffed at my unregulated pool, saying, "It lowers our property values, Ms. Mitchell. Join the HOA and we'll approve it." Her tone was pure condescension, her smile a mask of control. I'd politely declined, citing my exemption, but her eyes glinted with a challenge. "We'll see," she'd said, and I knew trouble was brewing. That Saturday, I was pruning roses when I heard the splash. Peeking through the gate, I saw Karen in my pool, her sundress discarded on my deck, lounging on a floaty like a queen. Rage boiled in me. This wasn't a one-off. I'd noticed wet footprints and missing pool toys for weeks. I stormed over, Ethan trailing behind, his eyes wide. "Karen, this is private property," I called, my voice shaking. She smirked, splashing water lazily. "Oh, Sarah, don't be so uptight. It's a community resource. Your easement says we share access. I'm just ensuring it's maintained." She gestured to a clipboard on my deck, marked HOA inspection log. Her gall floored me. The easement allowed passage, not pool parties. I grabbed my phone, snapping photos of her trespassing, then called her bluff. "I'm calling the cops," I said, dialing. Karen's smirk vanished and she scrambled out, grabbing her dress. "No need for that," she snapped, her voice icy. "But you'll regret this." She stormed off, leaving a trail of water on my deck. Ethan tugged my sleeve, whispering, "She's mean, Mom." I hugged him, promising, "We'll fix this, buddy." That evening, I reviewed my easement contract, confirming Karen had no claim to my pool, but her inspection log mentioned a new bylaw passed last month, allowing the HOA to monitor adjacent properties for community standards. The timing, right after I moved in, screamed setup. I called a neighbor, Mrs. Lopez, a retired teacher who'd lived in Pineview for 30 years. Over tea at her cozy kitchen, she spilled the tea. "Karen's been after your pool since you built it," she said, stirring honey into her cup. "She tried to fine me for my unapproved bird bath last year. Says it's about standards, but she's just nosy." Mrs. Lopez's words confirmed my suspicions. Karen wasn't just trespassing. She was on a power trip. I spent the night researching HOA laws, finding a legal forum where a user warned, "HOAs often forge bylaws to scare non-members." The next morning, I visited the county clerk's office, where a clerk named Janet handed me HOA records. "They're sneaky," she said, adjusting her glasses, "but they've got to play by the book." The records showed Karen's bylaw was rushed through with questionable signatures, and no notice was sent to adjacent owners like me. I snapped photos, knowing this was ammunition. Back home, I set up a game plan. I installed a motion-activated camera by the pool. its lens hidden in a fake rock, and rigged a silent alarm to my phone. By noon, the alarm pinged. Karen was back, this time with a friend, a wiry woman named Linda, both splashing in my pool like they owned it. The camera caught it all, Karen pointing at my deck furniture, muttering, "This needs to go," while Linda nodded. My blood boiled, but I stayed calm, saving the footage. Ethan watched, his face set. "Can we stop her, Mom?" I nodded. "We will." That afternoon, I met with a local contractor, Mike, who'd done pool work for the HOA. Over coffee at a diner, he shared a bombshell. "Karen's been snooping on everyone," he said, stirring his latte. "She had me quote a community pool project last month, wanted to use your land for it, said she'd handle the owner." He showed me an email from Karen, outlining her plan to pressure me into joining the HOA, then seize my pool for community use. The pieces clicked. Karen wasn't just entitled, she was scheming to steal my sanctuary. The next day I got a letter from Karen demanding a $2,000 compliance fee for my unregulated pool, with a threat to restrict my easement if I didn't pay. Her audacity was staggering, but I had a trick up my sleeve. I'd once helped a friend prank her brother with a pool stunt, swapping chlorine for a slippery blue gel, a harmless food-grade mix used in kids' slime kits, dyed to look like pool water. It turned the pool into a slick mess, impossible to swim in without sliding everywhere. I decided to recreate it, but I'd need to catch Karen in the act. I drove to a party supply store, buying gallons of the gel mix, blue food coloring, and a biodegradable binding agent to make it extra slippery. Back home, I drained a small section of the pool, mixing the gel in a bucket until it matched the water's hue, then poured it into the filtration system, setting it to release on a timer. The camera would alert me when Karen returned, and the gel would deploy, turning my pool into a blue goo trap. It was harmless, just slippery enough to teach a lesson, but it'd make her think twice. That evening, I met Mrs. Lopez and other neighbors at a park, forming a quiet alliance we dubbed the Pineview Protectors. We swapped stories. Karen had found one for non-compliant shutters, another for a noisy wind chime. "She's a dictator," Mrs. Lopez said, her eyes fierce. "Let's take her down." Mike offered to snoop during his next HOA job, while another neighbor, a paralegal named Rachel, promised to dig into Karen's financials. As the sun set, casting golden light over the playground, I felt a spark of hope. This wasn't just my fight anymore. The next morning, my alarm pinged at 7 a.m. Karen was back, this time alone, slipping through my gate with a smug grin. I watched on my phone as she dove in, oblivious to the trap. The timer ticked down and splat, the filtration system unleashed the blue goo. The water turned a shimmering, slick blue, and Karen flailed, her arms slipping as she tried to swim. "What the?" she shrieked, sliding across the surface, unable to get traction. She scrambled to the edge, her sundress coated in goo, her face a mix of shock and fury. I stepped onto the deck, Ethan giggling behind me. "Karen, I warned you," I said, holding up my phone with the live footage. "That's what happens when you trespass." Her eyes blazed, but she was too busy slipping to retort, finally dragging herself out, dripping blue slime onto my deck. "You'll pay for this," she spat, storming off, leaving a trail of goo. I laughed, high-fiving Ethan. Phase 1 was a success, but I knew Karen wouldn't quit. She'd escalate. That afternoon I got a call from Linda, Karen's friend, her voice trembling. "Karen's furious," she said. "She's planning to sue you for chemical endangerment. I'm sorry, I didn't know she was trespassing." Linda's guilt gave me an ally. "Meet me tomorrow," I said. "Bring any dirt you've got." She agreed, and I sensed a crack in Karen's armor. Back home, I cleaned the pool, flushing the goo, but kept the camera rolling. The footage was gold. Karen's flailing, her threats, all time-stamped. The next day, I met Linda at a cafe outside Pineview. She handed me a USB drive, her hands shaky. "Karen's been taking HOA fees for personal projects," she whispered. "This has invoices, $20,000 to her brother's landscaping company for work never done." The invoices were a bombshell, showing Karen's corruption went beyond my pool. I thanked Linda, promising to protect her. then called Rachel, who confirmed the invoices matched HOA records she'd accessed. "She's embezzling," Rachel said. "We can take this to the county." That evening I got an email from Karen, summoning me to an emergency HOA meeting to address my assault on her. The email threatened legal action and easement restrictions, but I was ready. With the protectors, Linda's evidence, and my footage, I had the upper hand. As the moon rose over Pineview, casting a silver glow on my pool, I sat with Ethan, his head on my shoulder. "We're winning, Mum," he said. I smiled, knowing the real battle was just beginning, but Karen was about to learn that this single mum didn't play nice when it came to her sanctuary. The sun blazed over Pineview Estates at 12:46 p.m. PKT on Sunday, May 18, 2025. As I stood in my kitchen, the hum of my pool's filtration system a quiet victory after yesterday's blue goo ambush. Karen's shrieking face coated in slippery slime replayed in my mind, a sweet reward for her trespassing, but I knew the battle was far from over. I'm Sarah Mitchell, a 39-year-old nurse and single mum who'd turned my backyard into a sanctuary for my son Ethan after losing my husband, only to have Karen, the HOA president, try to claim it as her own. With Linda's whistleblower evidence and the Pineview Protectors' support, I was ready to turn her entitlement into a public downfall. Have you ever had to outmaneuver someone who thought they were above the law? Stick with me, because this story's about to show how a little goo can unravel a tyrant's empire. I started the day reviewing Linda's USB drive, the kitchen table cluttered with printouts of Karen's invoices, $20,000 funneled to her brother's landscaping company, Bright Gardens LLC, for community enhancements that never materialized. The dates matched HOA fee hikes, and an email from Karen to her brother read, "Push the pool project, Mitchell's land is key." My blood boiled. She wasn't just trespassing. She was plotting to steal my pool for her scheme. I called Rachel, the paralegal, who confirmed the financial trail. "This is embezzlement," she said over the phone. "We can take it to the county attorney." I thanked her, feeling the weight of justice building. By 2 p.m., I met the Pineview Protectors at Mrs. Lopez's house, her living room filled with the scent of fresh tortillas. Mike, the contractor, had snooped during an HOA job, snapping photos of Karen's brother unloading fake landscaping supplies, cardboard boxes labeled trees that went straight to a dumpster. "She's pocketing the cash," Mike said, sliding me the pics. Mrs. Lopez suggested we gather more neighbors, while Rachel drafted a petition demanding Karen's resignation and a financial audit. Ethan helped fold flyers, his small hands steady. "We'll get her, Mom," he said, and I hugged him, his faith fueling me. That afternoon, I visited 5 neighbors, each with their own Karen grievance, fines for unapproved grills, threats to block easements, even a demand to repaint a garage. They signed our petition, swelling our ranks to 15. Tom, a retired vet, shared a story of Karen seizing his non-compliant flagpole, claiming it violated HOA rules. "She's a bully," he growled. "I'm in." By dusk, we'd distributed flyers around Pineview, headlined "HOA fraud exposed," with a blurry shot of Karen slipping in my pool. Residents whispered in driveways, their anger simmering. Karen's reign was cracking. The next morning, Monday, May 19, 2025, I got a text from Linda. "Karen's calling an emergency board meeting at 10 a.m. to address your attack. She's got a lawyer." I grinned. Her panic was our opportunity. I upgraded my pool camera with a live feed to stream the meeting on X, ensuring transparency. The protectors met at my place at 9 a.m., the pool shimmering innocently, its blue goo long flushed. Mike offered to record audio from inside the HOA office, while Rachel prepared a legal brief on the forged bylaw. As we strategized, Ethan handed out lemonade, his smile a beacon of hope. At 10 a.m., the HOA office was a tinderbox, 40 residents packed inside, some spilling onto the lawn with signs reading, "No more Karen." Karen stood at the front, her floral sundress pristine, her grey bob immaculate, but her hands trembled as she gripped the podium. Her lawyer, a slick man named Greg, flanked her, while Linda hovered nervously. "Neighbors," Karen began, her voice syrupy, We're here to address Ms. Mitchell's reckless chemical assault on me. Her actions threaten our community's safety. She showed a photo of my pool, claiming the goo was toxic, a blatant lie. I stood, my laptop glowing. Karen, you trespassed, I said, projecting the video of her diving into my pool, followed by the goo ambush. The crowd gasped, some laughing as Karen flailed. This is theft and harassment, I added, clicking to Linda's invoices, $20,000 to Bright Gardens LLC. This is where our fees went, not to landscaping, but to her family. Residents booed, their anger palpable. Greg tried to interject, citing HOA authority, but Mrs. Lopez stood. You forged that bylaw, she shouted, holding up Janet's records showing no notice to adjacent owners. Karen's composure cracked, her voice rising. This is a witch hunt. The pool project benefits us all. But the crowd wasn't buying it. Tom yelled, You stole my flagpole, where's my money? Others joined, sharing stories of fines and threats. Linda slipped me a note. She's got a ledger in her purse. I nodded, texting Mike to grab it. As the room erupted, Mike darted to Karen's side, snatching the purse during the chaos. Karen shrieked, lunging, but he escaped to the lawn, handing me the ledger, a handwritten record of $50,000 in misappropriated fees. By noon, Deputy Carter, a stern woman I'd met before, arrived with a warrant, her badge glinting. Ms. Karen, she said, you're under investigation for fraud and theft. Karen's face paled, her hands clutching the podium. This is harassment, she cried, but Carter wasn't swayed, escorting her out as residents cheered. Greg muttered excuses and fled, while Linda joined us, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'll testify. I patted her shoulder. Another ally won. Outside, under a scorching sun, I addressed the crowd with the protectors. This isn't just about my pool, I said. It's about our homes. Karen's been stealing and lying, but we're taking Pineview back. I showed a plan for a voluntary neighborhood watch, focused on cooperation, not control. Mrs. Lopez proposed a community fund for Karen's victims, while Tom suggested a pool party to celebrate our victory. The crowd applauded, some hugging, their relief palpable. Amy, a local reporter, filmed it, her story already brewing on X with Margot the Karen. That afternoon, I visited Janet at the county clerk's office, where she handed me a gem. The HOA's original charter lacked a required state filing, rendering it invalid since 1998. They've been operating illegally, she said, winking. You could dissolve them. I filed a petition with 30 signatures seeking dissolution and refunds. Back home, I checked the live feed. Residents were still at the HOA office chanting, "Audit now." Karen's grip was slipping and the protectors were driving the wedge. The next day, Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, Carter called with an update. Karen's home raid found offshore accounts, she said. She's been laundering grant money, $75,000 total. She's facing felony charges. The ledger confirmed it, detailing every illicit payment. I felt a mix of triumph and exhaustion. That evening, I rallied the protectors at Mrs. Lopez's, reviewing Janet's charter clause and Carter's findings. Mike had more photos, showing Karen's brother dumping fake supplies, while Rachel drafted a press release. She'll fight, Rachel warned, but we've got her. The next morning, I got a cease and desist letter from Karen's new lawyer, accusing me of intentional harm and demanding $10,000. I laughed, forwarding it to Carter. Guilty people bluff, she replied. We're seizing her assets, her pool project's dead. By noon, new signs appeared. Protect our standards, with Karen's photo, airbrushed to perfection. Her PR spin was desperate, but it was too late. The community was awake. I met Amy at a cafe sharing our evidence, and her article, Pineview HOA Scandal Rock Suburb, hit the web by evening, trending with Margot the Karen. That afternoon, I fortified my pool with a higher fence and new cameras, ensuring no more trespassing. The protectors planned an emergency meeting for tomorrow, aiming to vote out the board. Mrs. Lopez suggested live streaming it to X, while Tom offered to speak about his flagpole ordeal. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over my backyard, I sat with Ethan by the pool, his laughter filling the air. We're winning, Mom, he said. I nodded, knowing Karen's next move would be her last stand, but with the protectors, Linda's courage and a bit of goo, I was ready to finish this. The morning of the emergency Pineview Estates meeting dawned at 12:47 p.m. PKT on Sunday, May 18, 2025, with a sky streaked with golden light, as if heralding a long-awaited victory. I stood in my kitchen, the faint chlorine scent from my pool a reminder of the battle I'd fought, my son Ethan beside me, his small hand clutching mine. Karen's trespassing, her embezzlement, her threats. They'd pushed me. Sarah Mitchell, a 39-year-old nurse and single mom to my limits, but with the Pineview protectors and a slippery blue goo trap, I was ready to end her reign. Yesterday's HOA office chaos had cracked her facade, and today we'd shatter it completely. Have you ever stood up to a bully and watched their world crumble? Stay with me, because this story's about to show how a mother's resolve and a pool prank can drown a Karen's tyranny. The HOA office was a pressure cooker by 10 a.m., over 60 residents packed inside, their voices a low rumble as they clutched our flyers headlined, "Karen's Fraud Exposed." Karen stood at the front, her floral sundress crisp, her short grey bob impeccable, but her eyes darted nervously. Her new lawyer, a polished man named Mark, flanked her, while Linda, now on our side, hovered near the exit, ready to bolt. "Neighbours," Karen began, her voice trembling with forced calm. "We're here to address Ms. Mitchell's dangerous antics. Her chemical trap endangered my life, and her accusations are lies." She held up a doctored photo of my pool, claiming the goo was hazardous, a flimsy attempt to spin the narrative. I stepped forward, my laptop glowing with resolve. "Karen, you trespassed," I said, projecting the video of her diving into my pool, followed by the blue goo chaos, her flailing a comical yet damning sight. The crowd chuckled, then gasped as I clicked to Linda's invoices, $50,000 funneled. To Bright Gardens LLC, her brother's company, for non-existent landscaping. "This is where our fees went," I said, showing Janet's charter clause proving the HOA's bylaw was invalid without a 75% vote, never held. Residents booed, their anger a tidal wave. Mrs. Lopez stood, her voice firm. "You forged those signatures," she shouted, waving the county records. Karen's composure shattered, her voice shrill. "This is slander. The pool project was for the community." But the crowd wasn't buying it. Tom, the retired vet, roared, "You stole my flagpole, give me my money." Others joined, recounting fines and threats, their stories a chorus of defiance. Mark tried to interject, citing HOA jurisdiction, but Rachel, the paralegal, countered with legal precedents, her brief silencing him. Linda slipped me a note. "She's got a USB with more records." I nodded, texting Mike to grab it. As chaos reigned, Mike darted in, snatching Karen's purse, pulling out the USB before she could react. Karen lunged, screaming, but the crowd blocked her, their support unwavering. By noon, Deputy Carter entered, her badge a beacon of justice. "Ms. Karen," she said, her tone unyielding, "you're under arrest for fraud, theft, and forgery." Karen's face drained, her hands clawing at the podium. "This is a setup," she cried, but Carter wasn't moved, cuffing her as residents cheered. Mark slinked away, his defense crumbling, while Linda joined us, tears streaming. "I'm free now," she whispered. I hugged her, another soul reclaimed from Karen's grip. Outside, under a blazing sun, I addressed the crowd with the protectors. "This is about our homes," I said. "Karen's stolen from us, but we're taking Pineview back." I unveiled a plan for a voluntary neighborhood council, focused on unity, not control. Mrs. Lopez proposed a victim fund, while Tom suggested a pool party to celebrate. The crowd roared, some crying, others laughing. Our community was reborn. That afternoon, Carter called with an update. "Karen's confessing," she said. "The USB has bank records, $75,000 laundered through offshore accounts, plus emails about the pool project. She's looking at 5 years probation and full restitution." The raid on her home uncovered a second ledger, detailing every illicit payment and a blueprint for a community resort using my land. I felt a surge of triumph tempered by exhaustion. That evening, I rallied the protectors at Mrs. Lopez's, reviewing Janet's charter clause and Carter's findings. Mike had photos of Karen's brother dumping fake supplies, while Rachel drafted a press release. She'll appeal, Rachel warned, but we've got her. The next morning, Monday, May 19th, 2025, I got a frantic call from Mark, Karen's lawyer, demanding I drop my petition or face a countersuit. I laughed, forwarding it to Carter. Desperation, she replied. Her assets are frozen. Her resort's a pipe dream. By noon, new signs appeared. Save our standards. With Karen's photo, airbrushed to perfection. Her PR spin was a last gasp, but it was too late. Pineview was awake. I met Amy, the reporter, at a park sharing our evidence, and her article, Pineview HOA President Arrested in Fraud Scandal, hit X by evening, trending with Gat Jiwagu the Karen. That afternoon, I fortified my pool with a lockable gate and upgraded cameras, ensuring my sanctuary's safety. The protectors planned tomorrow's meeting to vote out the board, live streaming it to X. Mrs. Lopez suggested a community cleanup, while Tom offered to grill for the pool party. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over my backyard, I sat with Ethan, his laughter echoing as he splashed. "We did it, Mom," he said. I nodded, knowing Karen's next move would be futile, but with the protectors, Linda's bravery, and a gooey twist, I was ready to seal her fate. The next day, Tuesday, May 20, 2025, the meeting was a triumph. 70 residents voting unanimously to dissolve the HOA, citing its illegal status. Carter oversaw the process, ensuring fairness, while Amy live-streamed it, the chat exploding with support. We won our class action lawsuit, securing $150,000 in refunds, which funded a playground, a garden, and repairs for Karen's victims. Local media dubbed it the Pineview Pool Rebellion, sparking HOA reforms statewide, with my pool as the symbol of resistance. A year later, my backyard was a haven, the pool a gathering spot for neighbors who'd once feared Karen. The former HOA office became a community center, funded by a grant from a civic foundation inspired by our fight. They hired me to oversee its maintenance, a role that healed old wounds. Karen served her probation, working at a car wash, her sundress replaced by a jumpsuit, fitting justice for a woman who'd splashed into trouble. Mrs. Lopez called to congratulate me. "You didn't just save your pool," she said. "You saved us all." I smiled, thinking of my husband's advice, "Stand your ground." It had led me here to a Pineview where neighbors thrived, not trembled. As I lounged by the pool, the sunset painting the sky pink, I reflected on the journey. It began with a trespass and a gooey prank, a small act that exposed a web of greed, but it ended with a stronger Pineview, where community meant support, not domination. If you're facing an HOA Karen, check your rights, rally your allies, and don't shy away from a creative defense. Sometimes a little slipperiness is all it takes to turn the tide.